What if I told you this chapter isn't about romance, it's about escape? What if I told you sometimes the most important journeys aren't taken to find love, but to leave disappointment behind? Because in this chapter, nothing explodes, no hearts are shattered loudly, no shocking confessions are made. Instead, life quietly shifts. Winter passes, days feel the same, walks repeat, conversations repeat, and slowly, Elizabeth begins to feel something dangerous: restlessness. She doesn't want drama, she doesn't want attention, she doesn't even want answers. She wants change. A different place, different faces, different air. So when an invitation arrives, not to romance, not to society, but to travel, it feels like freedom. At the same time, she says goodbye to a man she once admired, not with pain, not with anger, but with a calm acceptance that surprises even her. Something inside her has shifted. And then comes London, a sister she longs to see, a family that welcomes her with warmth, busy streets, bright lights, theater nights. For a moment, it feels like happiness again. But beneath the laughter, Elizabeth learns something quietly painful. Jane is trying to be strong. Jane is pretending to be fine. Jane is still healing. This chapter is not about falling in love. It is about learning what actually matters. About realizing that not every charming man deserves your heart. Not every disappointment deserves your tears. And sometimes, rocks, mountains, and open roads are far more powerful than romance ever was. Stay with me, because this chapter marks a turning point, not in who Elizabeth loves, but in who Elizabeth is becoming. January and February passed quietly at Longbourn. Nothing truly changed. The same walks to Meryton, the same conversations, the same small routines. Elizabeth did not feel miserable, but she did feel restless. When March approached, a new plan slowly took shape. Charlotte expected Elizabeth to visit her at Hunsford. At first, Elizabeth had not thought seriously about going, but the more she considered it, the more the idea appealed to her. She missed Charlotte, and time had softened her dislike of Mr. Collins. More than that, Elizabeth felt ready for change. With such a mother and such difficult sisters, home was never perfect. A little distance sounded pleasant. There was another reason too. The journey would take her through London, and London meant Jane. Soon everything was settled. Elizabeth would travel with Sir William Lucas and his daughter Maria. They would spend one night in London before continuing on to Kent. The only real pain was leaving her father. Mr. Bennet would miss her more than he wished to admit. He asked her to write often and almost promised to answer her letters. Elizabeth smiled. Before she left, she said goodbye to Mr. Wickham. Their farewell was friendly, almost tender. Wickham reminded her that she had been the first to listen to him, the first to understand him, the first to pity him. He wished her every happiness and warned her playfully about what to expect from Lady Catherine. Elizabeth felt sincere regard for him. She parted convinced that whether married or single, Wickham would always remain, in her mind, the model of an agreeable man. The next morning, the journey began. Sir William Lucas talked constantly. Maria said little of value. Elizabeth listened politely and enjoyed none of it. By noon, they arrived in Gracechurch Street. Jane was watching from the window. The moment Elizabeth saw her sister's face, she felt relief. Jane looked healthy. She looked lovely. But Elizabeth also sensed something quieter beneath the smile. Inside the house, little cousins crowded the stairs, shy and excited. The welcome was warm and joyful. The day passed quickly. Shopping in the morning, the theater in the evening. Later, Elizabeth sat beside her aunt. Naturally, they spoke of Jane. Mrs. Gardiner admitted that Jane tried to remain cheerful, but she did have moments of sadness. Still, there was hope that time would help. She also told Elizabeth about Miss Bingley's visit. Jane had, from her heart, given up the acquaintance. Elizabeth was not surprised. Mrs. Gardiner teased Elizabeth gently about Wickham's change of interest and asked about the young woman he now admired. Elizabeth defended him with playful logic. If it was prudent to avoid a poor match, then it was also prudent to seek a richer one. Mrs. Gardiner worried that this showed mercenary behavior. Elizabeth laughed and said he could be mercenary and the young woman foolish if her aunt insisted. The conversation turned light, but a truth remained. Elizabeth was no longer wounded. She joked that she was tired of young men altogether and would rather spend time with foolish, boring men than charming ones. Her aunt warned that such words sounded like disappointment. Before the evening ended, Mrs. Gardiner offered Elizabeth something wonderful. In the summer, the Gardiners planned a tour of pleasure, perhaps to the lakes. Elizabeth was overjoyed. She spoke with excitement of mountains, rivers, and wild scenery, of freedom, of seeing the world clearly and remembering it well. For the first time in a long while, her heart felt light. This chapter does not end with romance. It ends with movement, with anticipation, with a young woman discovering that the world is larger than disappointment, and that sometimes the best cure for a wounded heart is not another heart at all, but open roads, open skies, and the promise of something new.